The Mishnah says like this: if a woman says, "Except for me, my get," she tells a shliach, she tells somebody, "Except for me, my get." And Rashi explains, then he actually confirms it. He says, "I got it for you," but he didn't give it to her. He ripped it up. Why did he rip it up? The Gemara will explain, because it was a time of shmad. There was a time of persecution, so they couldn't really have Gittin lying around. Otherwise, the Romans would persecute them. She needs two groups of witnesses. In other words, not really two groups of witnesses, but she needs the witnesses to testify about two things. First of all, they have to say that she actually appointed him as a shliach, as a messenger to receive the get for her. And the other two witnesses will have to say that she accepted it, and that the shliach, the messenger, accepted it for her, and he ripped it up. We could be the same witnesses, like I just said. Or you can have one person from the first group, and the same guy is in the second group, and there's another guy who's joining them each time. The third guy is a shlich in both of them, and then you have one witness for the first thing and another witness for the second thing. Okay, so that's the Mishnah. The Gemara is now going to start from a different direction, and eventually we're going to meet up with the Mishnah. We're going to bring in the Mishnah as a proof, but we're starting off with a different case. Itmar was stated. We're on Daf Samch Daled and 64a. There's a get in the hands of a person, a third party. The husband says, "I just gave it to you to hold it for me." Now, you're not allowed to live with your wife when you write a get. That's a side point. The question is she divorced or not? So the husband says she's not divorced. I just gave you the get as a pikadon, as a deposit to have. And the shalish, the third party, says that you gave it to me to give it to her to divorce. And he actually says, according to Rashi, in other words, even if he would be a shliach lehoilocha, we already said before, the husband could just cancel it. So what are we talking about? So what does it make a difference if he received it legerishin? Rashi explains that he was a shlich lekabbalah for the wife. He was receiving it for the sake of the wife. That's what the shalish says. And she's divorced according to the shalish. So according to the husband, she's not divorced. According to the shalish, she is divorced. Me Neman, who's believed? Rafun Amar Baal Neman. Rafun says the husband is believed to say that he gave it only as a pikadon, as a deposit. But Rav Chisda Amar Shalish Neman. Rav Chisda says the third party is believed. The person who has the get by him is believed. Rafun Amar Baal Neman. According to Rafuna, the husband is believed. Because if you're going to say that he gave it for gerushin, for the sake of gerushin, for the sake of divorce, he would have given it directly to her. From the fact that it's in the third party, it lends credence and it supports the husband's words that he didn't give it for divorce. And we're talking about they're in the same town. If they were in a different town, then it would make sense why he would give it to the third party. We're talking about we're in the same town. They're in the same town. So there's a lot of details in that the Gemara doesn't mention. According to Rashi, Rav Chisda says Shalish Neman to him that the Shalish is believed because he believed him. He gave it to him in his hands. He trusted him with the document. So we should believe the Shalish that it was given for divorce. Mosiv Rav Abba asks a question. He brings from this concept when it comes to monetary issues. If a person who owes the money admits that he owes it, it's like 100 witnesses. It's as strong as 100 witnesses. V'shalish neman mishneim. However, the shalish is believed more than both of them. Let's say there's a third party who has the money and so on. He's believed more than both of them. And what do we mean?
What does more than both of them mean? What does more than both of them mean? More than both of who?
The Malva and the Loiva. So let's say there's a dispute, a monetary dispute. The Mishnah goes on to explain this. Right? So each one of them says one thing, something. But Shalish, Shalish Neman, the Shalish is believed. Okay, the Shalish is believed. Why is the Shalish believed? Because the money's in his hands. So he's believed. Let's say he has the money we're talking about. He's the one with the money in his hands, and he says, this is what happened. This is the story. We believe the shalish. So we see clearly you believe the shalish because it's in his hands. So too by a get, we should believe the shalish because the get is in his hands. Says the Gemara, shiny moment. Money's different. Money you can forgive. Money is monetary. It's very different. It's much more for the fact that he gave the money in his hands and they both agreed to have the shalish hold the money, whatever it was for. So obviously we're going to believe him because he could. The Baal trusts him. So whatever he says is really what's going to happen. Mashenkin by Isser or something which is Isser. It's not something you could be moichel. Is she divorced or not? It's a whole different story. The Gemara asks, well, Tanya became the Gittin. We have a brayso that says, so too forget, we'll believe the shalish. Gittin moment. We're talking about monetary documents. That's not a divorce, not a bill of divorce. Well, Tanya became the shtaris. We say also for shtaris, which means that Gittin does mean divorce. Tanya doesn't say them next to each other. It doesn't. It's in two different braysos. One of them uses the word Gittin, which means Gittin moment. The other one uses shtaris, which means also moment. It's only moment. This is what Rav Huna will say. So even though the brayso seems to favor Rav Chisda, Rav Huna will say it's only talking about monetary issues that we're going to believe the shalish. Okay, so now we bring in our Mishnah. It says in our Mishnah, if the woman said, receive my get from me, and then the shlich says I did it, we need two witnesses, two sets of witnesses. One of them will say that she actually said she appointed this guy as her shliach. And the other two will say that he actually received it and he ripped it up. So now the Gemara analyzes and asks, based on Rav Chisda says that we believe the shalish. Why do we need witnesses? We should believe the shalish. It's in his hands.
This is the text.
So the Gemara answers,
Be something first here.
Is there a get under his hands? He ripped it up. He doesn't have the get anymore. So he's not considered a shalish. He doesn't have the credence and the believability of someone who actually is holding the document in fact. According to Rashi, we should believe him because he has because he's the person who is holding the get. Can't believe this. He's not holding the get. In the case of the Mishnah, he's not holding the get. So now the Gemara asks a different question because once we're starting to analyze the Mishnah, we'll analyze the Mishnah. Teina chomro. Makes sense that you need Adim that says that she appointed him as her shliach lekabbalah. Kibo lomali, but why do we need shluchim that he actually received it? Why can't you just have shluchim that saw that he had the get? Why do you actually have to see shluchim that he received the get? Why is that important? I mean, Bechlal, you could argue anyway that just because the husband believed him, it doesn't mean that he was a shliach lekabbalah from the wife. So just because he's holding the document, it has nothing to do with being a shliach lekabbalah. I don't know why the Gemara doesn't say that. Maybe the Gemara just has a stronger answer, which is doesn't even have the shtar, so he has no ne'emonos whatsoever. So again, the question here is, why do we need a shliach that the shalish actually received the get? Why can't you just have a shliach that saw that he had it in his hands? Why is it so important to say that he was makabel? Omar Rav, or maybe Omar Rav, I think there's like a dash there. Magamar, I'm not sure what that dash is. Hamani Rabbi Lazar, this is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Lazar, sorry, Damar Edim Mesir Kart. What causes the get? The actual act of receiving it. So you actually have to see that he received the get only happens through the Edim Mesir. The get is not kosher without Edim Mesir. You have to have Edim that saw the get being given over. So that's why you need Edim that he was makabel. Why do we mention that he ripped it up? Obviously, it sounds like it was a normal thing to do. Well, it's not just a random case. It was during the time of the Gzeda when they had a Shemad that Yidden are not allowed to keep term mitzvahs, so they had to hide as much as possible. It's interesting, but you still needed a lot of witnesses, but I guess it's better than having the actual document in your hands. Okay, Omar Rabba says, Ravuna will admit, Ravuna said Baal Neman, right? That the husband's believed. If there's a dispute between him and the shalish about what this get was it a pikodin or was it a real get? Ravuna will admit the omra ihi lididi omrli shalish delegation yavanila mehemna. That if the wife says that the shalish told me that it was given for gedushin, that we'll believe him because then you have both the shalish and the wife on the same side. So if it's just a dispute between the husband and the shalish, then it will be, we'll believe, according to Rav Huna, we believe the husband. But if it's also the wife affirming what the shalish said, then that adds to the credibility of the shalish, and we'll believe the shalish over the husband, even according to Rav Huna. So the Gemara asks the obvious question: how does that add? She's just saying what the shalish told her. For the shalish himself, it's not enough, and for her, she will be believed because she's also saying it will believe her. Rather, you have to rewrite what he had said. If she says that it was done in front of me, I saw the get being given over to the shalish for the sake of Gedushin, then we'll believe the shalish. Because if she wanted to, she could have said that it was given to her. The get was given to her. She could have taken the get and said it was given to her. So I guess the miga is also like miga for a mice, for an act. She could have literally taken the get. Obviously, if it's in her hands, then we'll believe her. So if she says that she saw it happen herself, then we'll believe her. There was a migui. Okay.
Isn't that a very unusual? Isn't that like a very unusual case? I mean, the guy's giving the get. She's there. I mean, he would normally just give it to her.
Why not just give it to her? Right. That already. It's true. It does cast the case a little bit into question. Like, why would he give it to the?
Now, is halachically, does he have to give it because she appointed a shliach Kabbalah, that he has to give it to the shliach Kabbalah because then, or can he just pass over him?
Could he give it straight to her? He could always give it straight to her. Absolutely. That's an interesting point. Like, why would he give it to someone else and not in front of her? Maybe they're in a big fight. They're obviously not on good terms. They don't talk to each other, you know.
Got it. He's afraid for his life.
Right.
If he gets too close, she might stab him.
Or maybe he's not. He has to be a man. He should just do. He's not doing the right thing. But yeah, I guess so. The husband says the get was given for Gedushin. The sholish also says it was given for Gedushin. And she says, no, suddenly it was given to me for Ovad, and I lost it. So therefore, what happens? We don't have the get in front of us. Do we believe her that she lost it? You need Eidim. It's not enough for her to say that she has and she lost it. She either has to have the document or she has to have Eidim that she got it. Why don't we believe the sholish? Why don't we believe the sholish? He says he has the get, and he says he gave it to her. No, why don't we just believe the sholish?
This is the text.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're towards the bottom now. We're on Samach Dalet Amud Aleph 64a.
Samach Dalet.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. 8 lines from the bottom.
So
the question is, why don't you just believe the sholish and the Baal and everybody? He doesn't have the get anymore, so you can't believe him. So the Gemara asks the obvious question, we should believe the husband. The husband says they divorced my wife, he's believed. Says the Gemara, did he say I divorced her? Didn't say I divorced her. He gave it over to the shalish to give it to her. He made a shlich le'eloch. It wasn't even a shlich. If it would be a shlich le'kabbalah, it would be a different story, but it was a shlich le'eloch. So he says he gave it to her, but we can't believe the shlich either. You need Eidim, you need witnesses. So the Gemara asks, why don't we say that we can assume that the shlich did carried out a shlichus? Sorry. Someone who tells the shlich, go and be mekadesh for me, your wife. And then he died. The shlich dies. He doesn't know. He told the shlich to betroth for him a woman, and he doesn't know who he betrothed. He's forbidden in all the women in the world. Because we can assume a shlich made a shlichus. Actually, Tosfos Yeshanim said he would be allowed to betroth a woman who all of her sisters are already married. That's the only case that he can marry. It's a knas. It's a fine the chacham give because we assume the shlich was mekadesh someone. He didn't tell you who it was. So we're worried you're marrying the woman's sister, and we're not going to believe her if she says I'm not her sister. We assume wrong because we assume the shlich carried out a shlichus, unless he mamash died right away, obviously. And for the Gemara, we're turning the page now. We're on.
Why can't you ask David? Just a question. Like, why did they make it so hard on the poor guy? Why can he ask her if he wants to marry somebody and all the sisters? Anybody who might be an
You
erva.
can't marry just two sisters.
No, like for example, like he said, he can't marry anybody in the world. So then Tosfos says he can marry somebody who doesn't have a sister, and then she could say she wasn't me. Even if she does have sisters, ask everybody. Did somebody betroth you? Anybody who might be an
Yeah,
erva.
but we don't believe her. It's not enough. It's a knas. It's a fine. It's a fine because you don't tell shliach be mekadosh from me any woman. You know what I mean? You don't tell somebody that.
Right. Oh, they don't like that. Okay.
You can ask, what about Avram and Eliezer? I think he was pretty specific. He mentioned a few families. He didn't say any woman in the whole world.
Right.
So we assume the shliach carried it out. So to here, we should assume the shliach carried it out.
It's a fantastic point.
We're on 64b. That's only to be strict that we'll say the shliach carried it out, that he's not going to be allowed to marry anyone. But the kula, to be lenient, that not. Why don't we believe the woman herself? She says she received the get from Rav Hamnuna. If a woman tells her husband, you divorced me, she's believed because chazaka and she's not going to have the chutzpah to lie in front of her husband to say that she's divorced if she wasn't really divorced.
Can you put her on the mic for a second?
What's that?
Can you put her on the microphone for a second?
What microphone, John?
This? Oh, you can hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So, David, is it generally speaking a rule in Jewish halacha to be disbelieving of people?
The disbelieving of people?
Yeah.
No, but not disbelieving, but not enough to believe. You have to have witnesses to believe, generally, unless there's a strong reason otherwise.
But are we encouraged in Judaism to not necessarily take somebody's word for it, but to at least, when somebody says they don't do something until proper ceremonies are taken out, you give people the benefit of the doubt? And
not in cases of marriages and divorces, because we have a general rule that something as serious as that, you need witnesses or you need like a very strong chazaka. Depends what. Depends for what. Depends which case.
I understand that to actually, deal with it, like court-wise, it needs to be very strict. But when just speaking to somebody who's in need of confidence, we're supposed to take someone seriously, correct?
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it really depends which case. But like monetary issues or erva, you need two witnesses. We learn one from the other, actually. Like for the courts, yeah, for the courts. Like in secular courts, one witness is enough. In Jewish courts, generally two witnesses are necessary, unless you have a chazaka, right? Obviously, the chazaka is only going to work if there's no one saying otherwise. Here, everyone's saying the same thing, so chazaka would be enough, like to have like a strong assumption.
All right, thank you.
But if there's somebody saying that's not true, then already, again, you're going to need two witnesses. So the Gemara says, this that we say a woman can tell her husband, you divorced me, and we believe her, that's only if there's nobody who's helping her, nothing helping her. Here, the husband's also saying the same thing. We're worried that she's going to have the chutzpah. So basically what has to happen is the husband has to write her a new get, which shouldn't be a big deal because he's saying that he gave her the get to the shliach. We just don't know if the shliach gave it to her. That's the question. We don't know if the shliach gave it to her. Even though she says it happened, we don't know. It's a good point. I mean, for confidence, but I guess ultimately because we're talking about something as strict, as severe as marriage, you have to be 100% sure.
But Judaism is not strictly telling me to be disbelieving of people if I'm just speaking to someone privately, correct?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it depends for what.
I mean, if somebody is going to confide in me, I will make my own judgment call as to whether or not I believe someone. Obviously, when it comes to courts, that we have a system, but I want to take people's word for things if I believe someone.
A person has cheskes kashrus. You could assume a person is a good person, unless you know otherwise, unless through experience you know that we can't trust them. And that's why we believe people, for example, to take an oath. If somebody says you owe me money and he says it's not true, all he has to do is take an oath and then he's ready. He can walk away scot-free. We believe. It's called Shavuos Esses. But yeah, generally we do trust people. So for example, if you're going to marry someone off, you have to really make sure they're Jewish. But if a person walks into Chabados and it says he's Jewish, you can assume he's Jewish. You count them towards a minyan. Obviously, if it's like going to be a permanent thing, it's probably good to look into it. But yeah, you generally we believe people.
Good.
It's up to your judgment. Actually, we have a case. I remember reading. I think Rava, he trusted his wife more than he even trusted his colleague. Like in terms of like halachic questions. I forgot what it was. I forgot the case. It was interesting because he knew for a fact that she was saying the truth. Okay, we're up to the next Mishnah. We're on Samach Daled Amud Beis 64b. Naidaha Murasa. If you have a woman, a girl who's betrothed, Hiva via Makablin is Gita. So because she's a Naira, she's not yet reached full maturity. She's reached puberty, but she's still within the 6-month phase where her father still can marry her off. Her father still has control over her. So on the one hand, her father could receive her get, but she could also receive her get. They could both receive her get, her and her father. Rav Yehuda says no. You can't have two people being able to receive a get for someone. Only her father could until she gets married. If she would get married, then it's her. Or because she's betrothed, until she becomes a begeris, until she reaches full maturity. If she's not able to hold her get, she cannot be migureshes. So if she's a shoita, she doesn't have sound mind. She's not of sound mind. You cannot give a woman the get because she has to be a shilchalabesa. You have to send her to her house. And in a case where you can't send her to her house, she's always going to come back to you. You can't divorce her. So we always have these issues throughout history of a woman who became a meshuga. You can't divorce them. Says the Gemara of Micah Mifli, what's the machlekes between Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbanan Tzavra Yoda Yiseret Zachal Rachman. According to the Chachamim, she has an extra yad. There's her yad and her father's yad. When it says Yoda and Nasan Yoda, it's her yad as well. She's a gedolah. And according to Rav Yehuda in the place of her father, her own hand is not considered anything. Says Rashi, she's entirely in her father's ownership, obviously not entirely, but in regards of get and things like that, until she reaches beger, she becomes a begeris. Because like for Nadarim, she's both in her father's rishus and her husband's rishus. So it's interesting. I mean, that's a strong raya for the Tanakama. When it comes to vows, both her husband and her father have to annul it, have to be mefer. All of a sudden, when it comes to get, only her father. Okay. If she can't watch her get, which means that she's always going to come back home, she's not going to realize she's divorced. She cannot be megurashes. Rabbanah was taught. If you have a ketana, a minor who knows how to watch her get, she's misgareshes, even if she's a minor. If she doesn't know how to watch her get, she's not misgareshes. What's a ketana that knows how to watch her get? If she could watch her get in something else. So what does that mean? If she can't differentiate between her get and something else, and she thinks they're the same thing, then she's considered able to be, she understands what the get is. So obvious question is, it's actually, you have to understand what Rav Yechon was saying. What do you mean? If she can't differentiate between her get and something else, that means she is. That's the definition of a shaita. She doesn't know what a get is. If she does tell the difference between her get and something else, that means she knows what the get is. And like something that's not a document, she realizes this is an important document, that's enough to divorce her. If you have a kata, now we're getting into what's considered das, what's considered being able to distinguish between one thing and another. So if you have a pebble and you throw it, an eggs and a walnut, and he takes it, that means he has a certain amount of das, the katan, the minor. So he's able to take things for himself, but if you want him to take something for someone else, it's not that, to that level, he's not able to. If you give him something and he's able to return it after a while, that shows he has enough das, enough intellect to acquire things both for himself and for others. When I said this teaching in front of Shmuel, he said it's the same thing. It doesn't matter, even if he's able to return a chayfetz, an object, after a while, it has the same din. What does that mean? In both cases, You're zoicha for yourself. The katan is only able to be zoicha for himself, but he can't be zoicha for others, according to Rabbi Yochanan. Nosiv Rav Chinan of Ardon. Rav Chinan of Ardon asks a question, a very strong question on this case of Shmuel. Ketza mishtatfin b'movei. How do you have shituf in the movei? Maniachas achavis. You take a barrel of wine. In general, the way it worked in those days was when they had closed alleyways, and everybody would live in courtyards along the alleyways. So how would they be allowed to carry? You had to do shituf. They had to have a barrel of wine that everybody had ownership in order to allow them to carry. So you place the barrel. You say this is for the whole everybody in the alley. And how do you make them merit to have ownership in this wine? Through your son and daughter who are gedolim, and through your servant and your shivcha, your maidservant who are eved ivri. So the obvious question is, he analyzes. How old is this shivcha? He does if you're going to say that she's reached puberty, she's a gedolah. What is she doing by him? She's not a shivcha anymore. She automatically goes free. She's not yet gedolah. It says she's able to be zeicha for others. It's a very strong raya. Now you could ask, if that's the case, so why do we say b'nai yavita gedolim? I think the answer is if it's your own children, they need to be gadol to have their own, to be different from you. You can't be mezaka for other people through b'nai yavita ketanim, because then they're totally reliant on you. Tosfos actually talks about it. Tosfos says, the shifcha is different than your children. The shifcha could be a ketana. Yeah, Mashenkin, your children or ketanim, they're mamish reliant on you more than a shifcha. So the Gemara answered, Shiny Shitufim Vos the Rabbanan. Shituf, to join everybody together by a movie is only rabbinic, so therefore they allowed even a minor to merit for everybody, even a katana, even someone who hasn't reached puberty. Amar Rav Chisda Ishtik Vardon. He was quiet. They answered the question of Rav Chinena, but he could have answered to them, I have a leila memer called the tikkun rabbanan can't deraisa tikkun. Anything the Chachomim established should be similar to deraisa. So if midaraisa, if a katan can't be mezaka for others, also midirabbanan. We're on Samachay now, 65a. The Yidach ki amrin called the tikkun rabbanan kin deraisa tikkun b'milsa disla ikram minatera. This that we say that anything the rabbanan are going to enact is similar to the deraisa. It's only if it has a foundation in Torah. But here it doesn't really have a foundation in Torah. I mean, it sort of does, but it's not like a gzera that you're expanding the category of a deraisa. It sort of is. I mean, you're not allowed to carry in a public domain, so they expanded it to karmelis, they expanded it to mavoi, and they allow you to carry. But it's more purely a derabanan than something like that, like a shvus on Shabbos, for example. Mosiv Rav Avia now asks a question on this klal that we want to say that a katan can't be mezaka lacheder according to Shmuel. Katan can't be merit for something for someone else. Marima no ma'aser sheni. So when it comes to ma'aser sheni, let's say you want to redeem your ma'aser sheni to bring the money to Yerushalmi. In the deraisa, you have to add a fifth, but you can make a trick. You could have your son redeem it for you. Ketzad. You tell your son and your daughter who are gedolim and your servant and maidservant who are ivrim, take this money and redeem with it ma'aser sheni. And you can eat it without adding the fifth.
How does that work? How does he get out of it by doing that?
Because it's not their ma'aser sheni. So you give them the money as a gift. They're redeeming it, and then you get to eat it because you're all together after all. It's obviously a trick because the fact is you're all together, but it's still enough to be considered to allow you to get out of adding the fifth, the 20%.
So the Torah allowed itself to be cheated out of a fifth by that?
I hear what you're saying. I don't know how to answer that. He's saying even the Chacham are okay with it because they give it to you as advice. You're allowed to do it. It's not like you're not allowed to.
Do you think that was common?
It's probably. Yeah, probably. So the Gemara says like this: Hi shifcha. What are we talking about when we say a shifcha? If she's already reached puberty, what's she doing by you? She would be free. Obviously she had. So the Gemara. So again, it's the same question. We're talking about meiser nowadays. That's the rabbanan. So for the Gemara, do you have an Amavriya nowadays? Is he sleeping? Oh shoot! It's starting to rain. Maybe I'll go on the porch. 1 second, sorry.
But also in Bisman Azeh that Meiser Sheni is the Rabbanim, we redeem it. Do you redeem it, Meiser Sheni, nowadays, or is there any process?
Oh, nowadays, what do we do with Meiser Sheni? I don't know. I'll try to get the answer for you tomorrow.
I'm sure he's talking about after the Beis Hamikdash.
What they do is basically nowadays you could redeem. I see in Tosfos, you could redeem a tiny amount of money. The Chacham allow you to redeem even a tiny amount of money for a lot of Meiser Sheni. And then you don't use the money because we don't really do Meiser Sheni nowadays.
What do you mean when you say you don't use the money?
My friend asked, what do you mean that?
Yeah, I
what
know.
they-
I was just thinking. I have to check exactly what the process is nowadays for Meiser Sheni. I didn't think of that. How we do it, like how we do it today. I'm gonna look it up. I'll let you guys know tomorrow. So the Gemara analyzes Hi Shifcha Chidami. What are we talking about when we say Shifcha? Again, if she has reached puberty, what's she doing by him? She must be a minor. So Raya, it's a proof that a minor could also acquire things for someone else. So the Gemara answers. We're talking about Meiser. Nowadays, it's only rabbinic. Midaraisa, I guess after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, there's no more Meiser Sheni. Biblically, only rabbinically, we have Meiser nowadays. So therefore, she could redeem it for you. That's how she could give it back to you. Otherwise, how could she give it back to you? How do you even have a maidservant nowadays? It must be talking about when, but even the times, this has to be talking about from the times of the first Beis Hamikdash. Like it says, there's no Eved Ivri unless there's Yovel. You have to be able to go back to your family. So that means the whole Klal Yisrael has to be living in the same place. You have to have Yovel in order to have an Eved Ivri. So we don't even have Eved Ivri nowadays. So you can't say it's talking about nowadays. It for sure is talking about when Meiser Sheni is Midaraisa.
We don't have Yovel anymore, do we?
No, we don't. We only have Yovel when you have all the Shvatim sitting in their place.
Only Shemitah.
We have Shemitah, yeah. Rather, we're talking about Meiser Sheni from a plant that it doesn't have a hole in it that's D'Rabbanan. So this is very dachuk, obviously. Very forced answer. That's specifically talking about a potted plant with no hole in it, so it's not attached to the ground. So that's D'Rabbanan, and that's why a Ketana is able to do it for you. A minor is able to do it for you. Obviously, it's much stronger to say that, not like Shmuel. You could force Shmuel's interpretation into the Brisa, but it's much stronger to say not like Shmuel. You say that a Ketana can be Mizakar for you, can do things for you with kinyan and with acquisitions. Okay, so the Gemara ends. Omar Rava Gimel Midas Bekatan. There's three measures when it comes to Katan. If he sees a rock, he'll throw it away, and not, he's going to take it for himself. He can take for himself and not for others. Now, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to Ketana, a minor, like a girl who's a minor, Miskadeshes Lameon, she could be betrothed, so that in order for her to leave the marriage, she'll have to do miyun. She'll have to say, I don't want this guy. Otherwise, if she's younger than that, then there's no marriage whatsoever. Hapuutais. If you have the young ones, and Rashi explains who's the young ones, that they're 6 or 8, that they're able to deal with business. Mekchan mekach memkarim memkar. So it's very young. Obviously, to take the nut for themselves is younger than 6. They could do business. The mitaltalin with movable objects. By Ktana, she could accept the gerushin if her father marries her off. She can accept her own gerushin if she's 6 or 8. And once they reach the level of Nadarim, able to make vows, that's muflas amachlish. You have to be 1 year before bar mitzvah. You check them if they know for who they're making the vow, or for the sake of who they're being mekadosh something, making something sanctified. So we trust them. Similarly, by Ktana, she's able to do chalitza. Normally, you have to be gedolah. As long, Rashi says, she has to have simonim, she has to have the puberty, she has to have reached puberty, but even if she's not 12 yet, we will allow her to be chaletzes. Because it says ish by nadarim, so we makshin and ish al ish. You have, in order to sell your father's property, you have to be 20. Okay, so that's the Bavli. We're up to the Mishnah. Now we'll do one Mishnah, a shorter Mishnah of Yerushalmi. We're up to. What are we up to? Here, I have it on the spot. Halacha hey, daf chof ches amud aleph in the Yerushalmi.
This one that doesn't have it. I believe it's over here. So I have made copies of that already.
Okay, the Mishnah. Everybody has it?
How does it start? Hamatame?
Halacha hey. Halacha hey. Hamatame, yeah.
Okay. Tame.
Hamatame, somebody who causes his friends a produce to become tummy, to become impure. Hamadame, or if you mix truma into your friend's stuff. So you didn't actually ruin it, but you caused it to become forbidden. Vamanasich, it causes wine to be also because it's avodah zarah. It was mixed with wine, which is avodah zarah. If you did it by mistake, you're exempt. If you did it on purpose, you're chayev. It's a knas, it's a fine because you did it on purpose, so that we make you pay him back. If the kohenim cause a carbon to become pigul, which means that they said, I'm having in mind to do this carbon chutz lizmani or mekayme outside of the proper time or the place, to eat it out of the proper time and the place, when they did one of the 4 avodas of shchita, kabbalah, halacha, and zrika, shechting it, receiving the blood, walking it to the mizbech, and sprinkling it on the mizbech. They said at that time, we're having in mind to eat the meat outside of the time and place, chayov, and they have to pay the owners back to a new carbon because they ruined it for them.
In all these cases, my question is, even if they do it b'shogeg, they're damaging another person's property. So why does the Gemara let them off lightly?
Oh, that's a good question. So we spoke about it in the Bavli. We said 2 answers. One answer was really that you're not chayiv because hezek shin and nikar lo yishmei hezek. If you can't see the damage, it's not considered hezek to make you liable b'dinei odam. But it's a knas if you did it b'mezid. It's a fine only if you did it b'mezid. The other answer is hezek shin and nikar shmei hezek, and I think the Yerushalmi will say the same thing. But if you did it b'shoigeg, we let you off the hook so that you'll let the guy know. Otherwise, he's going to be eating isser without realizing.
Got it.
Okay, so Rav Yudin loinochas aves vada. Rav Yudin didn't go one day to the yeshiva. So he got up, he's met up with Rav Mona, and he says, what do they say new? What's the chiddush that they said? Rav Yosi holds a matame nikais maisa. Hezek shen nikar is not hezek And if you're matam somebody's property, it's not as if you did something. Min hadot truma v'nitmis, like the case that we have in Bava Kama that says if you stole truma and it became tameh, you just have to return what you stole. You don't have to pay him the value of the truma Torah. Omer lei, he told him, tifter shenitmis me'eleh. That's only talking about if it became tameh beyond your control. V'leishma min haklum. You can't learn anything from that. We have another mission that says that if you judge the judgment and you made a mistake, or if you're matame something that's Torah and vice versa, we're talking about that he did something be a daim. You made something tameh be a daim. That you do have to pay back. Review the Rebbe says, really, even if you did a b'shaygig, you should be chayav. That's what my father was asking. Why you putter if you did a b'shaygig? Because a person is always responsible for his actions. Why do we say putter? In order for him to let the guy know. Oh, so I mixed up with Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan, really, you should be putter no matter what. Hezek sheni nicker is not a hezek. It's a knas. It's a fine. The Gemara says, the proof, the strength of Rabbi Yechanan is from our Mishnah. And it sounds like from Rabbi Yechanan it sounds like Mezid Chayiv only because of Knas. I mean, you really, I don't see how that's a raya. It's a very, very dochik to raya because you could say it either way. You could say, I guess from the way we say b'shoigig pater, it only makes sense according to maybe it's more logical for Rabbi Yechanan. That's because of Knas. I don't know. Now we bring a stronger proof. Masnisa Messiah Rabbi Yechanan. We have a supporting Mishnah for Rabbi Yechanan. It says, let's say your friend has a para aduma that can't have a yoke on it, and you put a yoke on his para aduma. Potter min dini adam chai b'din ishmaim. You're potter from dini adam and you're chai b'din ishmaim. So you're exempt. It's a right for Rabbi Yechanan. You're exempt. You didn't really do anything. I mean, you did something. We didn't really do a damage that's recognizable, and you're only chai b'din ishmaim. Considered a rasha, but you don't have to pay him in court. Ad gadoin kasavar shu chulin. Frag the Gemara, what's shoygig? Shoygig we think means you think it's chulin. You didn't know it was holy. Let's say how you what if you knew it was truma and you thought you're allowed to make a tummy? Is that considered shoygig? We can learn it from the other case. It says if koinim caused pigul in the base of mikdash. What are we talking about? If they thought it was chulin, it's not possible to make pigul b'chulin. It's only possible to make pigul in kachim. They have to think it's kachim and make it pigul. They knew it was kaidish. They thought it was allowed, and therefore we'll let them off the hook. So too, if you knew it was truma and you thought you're allowed to make a tomei, then we're gonna let you off the hook. It's also considered a shaking. Okay, so now we're talking about nisech. The problem is if you're menasech your friend's wine, you made it of a zar, you chayv misa. You don't have to pay a monetary fine. Sorry. It's only if you mix the yanesech in. Nisech but if you first were menasech and then you mixed it in, or you mixed it together, then you chayv miso, and in the end you're chayiv tashlumin.
I'm sorry, what's the case? What's the difference? I'm sorry. What's the difference here? First case versus the second case?
You weren't menasech. You weren't menasech. You were not menasech. You were ma'ariv. You mixed the yanesech in with other things. So then we say nisech betchilo. So we say like this: nisech be'irbavo betchilo. Let's say you're menasech and you mixed it up. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sure. Yeah, take whatever you need to take. If you mixed it up and if you're menasech and then you mixed it up, then you're chayv misa b'soif tashlumin. Then first you're chayv misa and only then tashlumin. That's the way the Pnei Moshe explains. So we don't like that. Hey, Sefer Rababo, haga atzmach shehoreg is never shibat tzlach. Since you first killed someone and then you broke a jug, you're going to say that you are chayv tashlumin. No, we hold that you're potter. You're going to be potter in such a case. If you're first chayiv misa and only then chayiv tashlumin, you're going to be potter. You're going to be exempt. Mosif Rav Yosef says another case. Hagatzmoch shehidlik dishes chaveiroi b'Shabbos betchila who chayiv misa b'seif tashlumin. No, if let's say you lit your friend's grain heap on Shabbos, in the beginning you're chayiv misa, in the end tashlumin, it's not shaykh. This is also proof. It says menasich together with mitame medame, and you're chayiv because of tashlumin, because of knas. So we can't say that you were actually menasich. This is the way the Pnei Moshe explains. We'll just go with this explanation. It's a difficult Yerushalmi. You were just out of somebody else's yain nesach. Somebody else had wine, which was also because of a dessert. You mixed it into your friend's wine. That's what we're talking about. All right, we're up to halacha vav.
Couple questions. Number one is, I always thought that the lack of knowledge is no excuse in front of the law. Seems to be
Lack
that
of knowledge is no excuse
in front of the law, and it seems to be that it is an excuse. That if a person thought that it's allowed, then he's pater. All he had to do was learn the halacha.
Well, he's pater because otherwise you're gonna eat iser unwillingly. In a case where there's real damage, it's obvious your stuff is damaged. Here, you can't see it, so in order for you to know about it, we let you off the hook if you do a b'shogeg. If it's only a knas, it makes sense. For sure, it makes sense. But even if it's a real damage, we want you to know about it, so you'll refrain from eating it because it's forbidden.
And the other thing is that why did they slug up the thing of, say, if you light a person's something on Shabbos, then it's chayiv misa. But then if the fire spreads and damages his property, why does he not have to pay before they kill
The
him?
concept of kamle b'derabimine. If you're chayiv misa, you can't be chayiv tashlumin.
But the two things happened at different times. Like, first of all, he lit a small thing, and then the fire spread and then burnt everything.
I think the din is even if it happens later, because the chayiv misa came first, you're going to be exempt. So you're saying you could tie it, well, then the guy will just go and ruin everything. He'll just destroy everything if he's anyways chayiv misa.
Right.
I don't know. It's a good question.
And the final question is that even if he poured yayin nesach into the other person's wine, so he didn't make the yayin nesach, but he did make the yayin nesach, because once he poured the yayin nesach into somebody else's wine, he's making more yayin nesach.
Oh, he's not. Oh, you're saying because he's not really creating more. It's just forbidden because it's mixed in. He didn't create it. He didn't say it's for avodah zarah. He's mixing it in. You can't get it out anymore.
Okay.
All right. Okay, everybody. Take care. Have a great day.